We'll bring the outreach committee to order. And Dawn, could you do a roll call?
Mayor Dirtis.
Here.
Mr. Van Amberg. Mr. Ebinger.
Here.
Mr. Gust. Ms. Mastel.
Here.
Mr. Capitan.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Steen. Mr. Olson.
Here.
Ms. Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Strand.
Here.
A quorum is present.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Next item is approval of minutes from February 24th, and they were presented in our packet. Do I have a motion?
Move approval, Strand. Second, Strand.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All that disapprove, say aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Number 3, immediate activities. The P3 education series and bid completion and transition. Roll.
So that would be where I'm going to make a presentation in the next piece.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then item B. That would be the key legislative milestones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's just me discussing through the immediate activities for communications.
All right. And then also, so maybe I have the wrong agenda here, but should we just go to your presentation?
Sure.
Please do. All right. Thank you.
Share my screen. 1 second. Okay. So do you see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Thank you. So I just wanted to share a little today about what's on the horizon for communications. So some of the immediate activities that we're preparing for are getting ready for the P3 sharing that education series that will come out soon. We have a presentation that's pretty much ready now. We just would like to polish it a bit and maybe add an alternative video element to it. So I think there'll be more shared in the board meeting this week on that. Also preparing for that bid completion. So we're just being proactive now to be prepared when we get to the point where the bid is ready to be announced. We're just doing all the back end work for preparing for the press release and any discussions around that. And also during that transition phase after the bid completion, just preparing for onboarding with that partner, what those elements will look like behind the scenes from a communications perspective. So nothing necessarily to share on that now other than just talking you through it to let you know that this is something immediate that we're working on. Also, the key legislative milestones. So there has been a lot of great testimony that Joel has been a part of in the recent weeks. We've had great feedback and hope that things continue to go as well as they have been. We'll continue to provide updates for that as well, but just continuing through this legislative session to make sure that we're as successful as possible and are able to react quickly whenever there's a testimony needed or questions that need to be answered. Also, part of the previous two items mentioned is just preparing a media development kit as well for any future reactions or questions or things that come up, not only during that P3 process, but just in general. We need to have a really solid media kit for our holding statements and any list of who needs to be contacted in an urgent situation, and having all of the bios and pictures and info about the project ready so that can be shared easily with the media and they can quickly have what they need in a time that we need to turn something around urgently, and then just have it in general. Also, just diving a little bit more into the community engagement piece. So Roger, I'll mention that we had met recently with the team and talked a little bit about just some of the extensive list of communications that we're working on, and we're looking at ways we can dive into that a little more, being involved more with the community as we continue through this construction phase of the project. So we have some regular meetings scheduled going forward to continue to plan on that and align, so more to come in the future. One thing that I touched on in the last meeting was the website. So my initial goal was wanting to have a website ready for the time that the P3 bid goes out, but it's going to be too extensive. It's take a little bit too much time. So, but we do need a new website based on where we are at this phase of the project. Going into that construction phase, there's different information that needs to be shared. We need to archive a bit of that current information so it is still accessible, but not necessarily as prominent. We're able to show more photos and videos now for what we're trying to document for the construction that's happening going forward. So our initial thought is to do a two-phased approach to this now that we're where we're at now. Phase one would be getting a landing page up by the end of April. So I just wanted to talk through it with you today to share a little bit about what that would look like. The focus would be redesigning that homepage so when someone comes to the website, they'll be able to find a new, fresh, modern approach to the project, where it identifies who we are, where we're located, what we're trying to accomplish, what are all the entities involved with making this project happen, just what some of our goals are, and even adding some additional elements for video and photo, just because there's going to be a lot of attention coming at us in the next month or so with the bids. So it would be really great if we have that upfront face for the project to tell that story through at least a new landing page. And then it would be something that could be reworked into the rest of the site that would be built throughout Q2 and Q3. So probably by the end of September, we would be looking at having the rest of the site be all integrated with that landing page. So it has a new, fresh approach to just where we're at with the construction phase of the project, making sure that they have the public has access to anything related to jobs, and we can partner with the Chamber of Commerce and show how there's opportunities here in the community, getting out any of the information needed during the road closures and things that might be experienced during that construction phase. So just thinking a little bit proactively about how we can get ahead of things before that piece of the project really starts to take effect at the end of this year or beginning of next year, and have that site rebuilt to be prepared for that audience that we're going to need to be able to provide information to during that time. So I'll stop there real quick before I can continue on to see if there's any questions on this piece or anything else that I shared.
Any questions for Jennifer from the committee?
Jennifer, this is Katie with the Chamber. Just wanted to, not really a question, but more a comment of, I really appreciate the forward thinking of being able to have a place to post those updates and be prepared and proactive. because I guess what I'm hearing in the community from the chamber side of things is just, I think the community doesn't really know what this project's going to look like as it starts unfolding. And so things like road closures, we've had conversations in the past when there's road closures for construction and stuff. And of course, the businesses are concerned about that. So just being proactive, letting them know ahead of time for this project will be really important to keep good PR on everything.
Good feedback, Katie. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that was a great conversation that we had recently. I think it's much needed for us to get ahead of this as much as possible. So look forward to working on this more with you. Any additional questions or feedback before I continue? Okay. So the next piece of what has been working on to make all of this kind of come together is just having that consistency. I've touched on it before, and we've gone ahead and updated the project templates, have a style guide to show those new elements developed, updating everything across all the social media channels so we have a consistent look and feel. And part of what I'd like to come out of that when we're ready in these next couple of weeks is scheduling some type of meeting for a communications alignment across all of the entities. So it's one thing to update this information and have it out there, but there's so many different entities working on this project, so many different people doing some type of communications that I just want to make extra sure that we're all on the same page. We're all aware of the new branding, the new where everything can be found. We all have a consistent a way of how we're communicating the speak that we're using going forward, some of the terminology, and just making sure that we have feedback as well on any one-pagers that we might need to see, any infographics or some kind of statistics on the project. So that will be the goal of having that future communications alignment across the entities. It's something that I'll plan in the coming weeks to just have some open conversation to be able to share that information and hear some feedback as well. And then with that, I will take it to an update on the actual project. So we were lucky to have some great weather recently and was able to have Tammy Jo film a couple of drone videos. So Terry is on the call today from the Corps and is going to help talk through some of the updates on the project to give you a little bit more detail. So while she is joining us, I'm going to just switch screens real quick and get to the actual videos. So give me just a second.
Can you make that bigger?
Yep, I'm gonna pull up a different screen, so just 1 second and I'll make it full screen. Let's see. Okay. I don't see that screen as an option. So I will, let's see. One second. Can you see the screen now for the construction flyover?
Yes, Jennifer, we can, and it's larger, so.
Super. And Terry, are you on the call?
I'm here.
All right, I'm gonna hit play. Thanks
All
for
right. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. This drone footage was taken last week at the Diversion Inlet site. The contractors started driving H-pile in the stilling basin area, so you can see where the the red crane is, and they've made some great progress on placing that H-pile. In the coming weeks, we'll be pouring some more dam walls on the left and right. You might remember that there's some preload areas. The preload areas will be removed. And then the additional dam wall segments have to be placed within a certain amount of time so the soils don't rebound. We're looking right now at the approach slab and then where the gates are going to sit. So this year also, the gate bays will become very apparent as the piers are going to be poured. The stilling basin will be poured. The stilling basin walls will be poured. And in addition, they'll continue to fabricate the gates, the operating machinery, and all of the assemblies for the big 50-foot gates. So here we're looking towards the southeast. The water from the staging area will come in this direction. Some footage of the H-piles going in the stilling basin area. And then you can see the stepped area as well, where the water is going to come through the gates, and then the energy from the water will start dissipating as it goes through the stepped area and then the baffle blocks in the stilling basin area. So this year, I'm going to see a lot of progress again as this structure continues to take shape.
Thank you, Terry. Let's switch to the next video of the Wild Rice River construction structure.
So the video was taken last week. We're coming up from the south. The engineered channel will flow through the structure. You can we're starting to form up the approach walls on the left side. So that those forms mark where the left approach walls are going to be, and that the approach wall flows through the structure itself. The big slabs for the control structure were poured last for the two really big pours. The one was 1,700 cubic yards, or about 170 trucks. You can see the right approach wall footings and a really good shot of the formwork for the left approach walls as well. The contractor's also placing sheet or H-pile in the downstream stilling basin, just like they are at the diversion inlet structure. So the big activities this year at the Wild Rice, pouring basin, slabs and walls, placing the approach apron or the entrance to the structure, finishing up these east and west approach walls, and then preloads are going to go in. Just like the diversion inlet structure, we're preloading where the dam walls meet up with the embankments so that we don't have differential settlement. And then bedding and riprap downstream of the stilling basin, and then they are also fabricating the gates, operating machinery, and all of the girder gates. And those activities are going on in Alabama. We expect the gates to be hung at both structures next summer of 2022. So that'll be a big event as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. So that is my presentation for today.
Well, we certainly have some awesome weather to get the project going this spring, so let's hope that continues. And just before we go to item 7, I want to bring up the naming issue. There's been a fair amount of back and forth with individuals on what name we're going to put on our website and on our for our logo. And Jennifer, could you maybe just put up some names that I think you had done this last time and show us the names that have been used on this project?
Sure, give me a second and I'll share that screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me just
No.
make it a little larger.
So this is a list of names that have been used over the last many years. And as you can see, there's quite a variety. So what we've been trying to do is put a brand on this that can be consistent. And I think we need a little help. Some of the names, one of the names we came up with didn't seem to be inclusive enough of Fargo-Moorhead. Another name was suggested and wasn't inclusive enough for Cass County or Clay County or the area, because this is a large project that brings benefit for more than the Fargo-Moorhead area. So I think we want to be sensitive to that. And I think we're struggling a little bit here to identify what we want to put on our logo going forward. And I'm just wondering if there's any thought here. I know there wasn't really much from the committee from the last time this was presented. And John, maybe, I think John Shockley is on. Maybe you, John, can tell us maybe a little bit more about the names?
Actually, before John shares something, do you mind if I just share a little bit of how this list came about? Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be fine, Jennifer.
So I just want to share that this list is all of the names. So everything that you see here is everything that has been used for the project, whether it's been official or not. It's just different variations of the name that have been used in one way or another. So that's how this list came to be compiled in general. And the information that you see highlighted in yellow are the legal names of the project. So what I did is, when I saw that there were so many different names being used, we need to have some kind of consistency and stick to one name. So I had reached out to John Shockley to find out what the legal name of the project is, and that's where these ones highlighted in yellow came up. So with that, I can turn it over to John and let him share a little bit of his perspective on what he has on the history of the names and from the legal perspective as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Jennifer. So maybe I'll divide my comments into two categories. The first, I'll address the low-hanging fruit. The authority names, there's one legal name for the diversion, and that is the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. That's the highlighted one under the authority. That's the legal name. That is in all the contracts. That's on the PPA with the Corps, and that is on all legal documents regarding the diversion authority, including the WIFIA loan application, including the master indenture of trust. And so that's the legal name, and that was established by the JPA. We've historically used either number one when referencing the diversion authority. For example, if Joel or somebody speaks in front of the legislature, generally we'll say I'm John Shockley, General Counsel, the Metro Flood Diversion Authority, or Diversion Authority for short. That's the legal name. That's probably the easy question. I don't think that we wouldn't want to change the legal name of the entity. That would take a huge effort to change the actual name of the entity. The more difficult question is the project name. What do you call the name of the project that we're building? and what people commonly refer to as the diversion project. And when Jennifer asked me about this, we tried to capture all of the different names that the project had been referred to over the years. And those are items 1 through 14. The number 1 is the official name of the project that was given to it by the Corps. I don't know if you want to use that for branding or not. It's quite a lengthy name. To be frank, from a legal perspective, if you want to use a branding for the project that's different than the official name, I'm not having any red flags with it. But what I would emphasize is that I think consistency would be good, to have one single name for a branding name. Over the years, we've seen different names used for the project. And I think Jennifer is really trying to look at this as, can we get one consistent brand name for the project? So I can certainly answer any questions you might have about the project name or the authority name. But I think the authority name is relatively easy, and my understanding from speaking with different board members is it's the issue that is really presenting itself is not about the authority name, it's about the project name.
So Roger, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for a discussion on, from our committee on helping choose a name that we can go forward with.
Oh, this is Rick. I'll just start it out if that's okay.
That would be fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, as far as the authority name, John, and if our official name is Metro Flood Diversion Authority, then I think that's what we should be using. You know, there's no Flood Diversion Authority. That's an abbreviation. If we've got a name, it should be Metro Flood Diversion Authority. If we're for some reason using that versus our branding name, that'd be first comment. Second comment. Boy, I'm not in the communications business, so it's easy for me to defer to anybody else. But to me, I've referred to it as the FM or the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project since I've been on board. So one of those two makes sense to me. That's one member's comments.
Okay, and we have Mayor Carlson. Hands up.
Yep. Thank you, Roger. Yeah, and Commissioner Steen kind of stole my words. I guess my thoughts are, you know, the legal name. My understanding was there was a discussion around what that legal name should be. I think Metro Flood Diversion Authority, and I think, you know, since I've come on board only a year ago, when talking about it, I just say Diversion Authority. I think that the project, I mean, there's going to be various projects that are going to be part of the whole diversion authority. And I think if we're looking at branding, we just need one consistent brand, one consistent name, you know, because there's going to be various projects underneath it. So that is my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else? I see Kevin has got his hand up.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, the FMDA, that's the governing body that, you know, makes all the rules and signs all the contracts. I do like keeping the name Metro in there because it kind of goes above and beyond necessarily just Fargo and just Moorhead. You know, from a branding standpoint, you know, just drop off the name authority and just use Metro Flood Diversion Project to describe the project. That's what I think.
Thanks, Kevin. You know, one thing that was brought up to me was, you know, this is more than a diversion project. This is really a a flood reduction project. I know diversion name has been used because that is the major part of this, but it does bring a lot of benefit, flood benefit, reduction benefit to a large area, Cass and Clay, Fargo Moorhead, all the way up to Harwood and those areas, West Fargo. So that was another consideration I was asked to present. Anyone else?
Mayor Mahoney.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm looking at the list and there's a variety of names this has been called, but the relationship between the core and the cities of Fargo and Moorhead have always been in that particular area. You know, Joel had a name this morning that I think was called Fargo Moorhead Area Flood Risk Project as well. We got to concur, some people like something with Metro in. The reason I don't like just Metro is that if you're in Minnesota, Metro typically refers to the metro area. Klobuchar is on the project, and I think it's better politically to have Fargo Moorhead in part of the heading. Roger makes a good point that it's the area as well, so governor seems to like metropolitan as well. Seems like a lot when you have the Fargo Moorhead Metropolitan Area Flood Risk Management Project, but to your point as well, Roger, it's not only a diversion, it's a flood risk issue as well. I feel very strong that we have to reflect the project as it started in the last 10 years has always included the Fargo Moorhead as part of that moniker. And I think in our community, that's what a lot of people consider it as well. Little surprised on funding this year in which they just called it the Fargo project in the bonding bill, and the Moorhead was dropped off of that. But I think we're all committed to it. 2 counties, 2 cities are very strongly committed to this project. And when we go to Washington, that's what they've heard it as. Any iteration had Fargo Moorhead in it. We've added sometimes metropolitan to get it a bigger area, and no objections to that. But I feel rather strongly if we're doing sales tax and the community's putting the sales tax into it, their name should be on part of the project in the public arena, especially when we're going to get money in the Minnesota side and in the North Dakota side. Everybody in Bismarck knows that this is a project in this community, and sometimes are sensitive to things that are a little bit less defined. So I and my team would feel very strongly that FM should be, Fargo Moorhead should be part of whatever name we choose.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Anyone else? I think John Strand. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Is my computer, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. This reminds me of times where you end up doing something like creating art by committee, and it gets cumbersome. You know, this notion of branding and naming and identification, we're a committee, but I think we should stick to some basic rules. One of them is keep it simple. And then number 2, have it reflect what people think it is. You know, in my mind, all I say is the Fargo Moorhead diversion. You know, that's what I do. In my business world, I was guided years ago to make the most prominent thing in your business card your name, not the name of the company you represent, and make sure your name's in there. Some people don't even put their name on there, but in my mind, this is the Fargo Moorhead diversion. It's not the legal name. It's not, you know, but that's what people call it. That's what it's known as. That's the simplest name. And so that's kind of where my head goes, is I would make sure Fargo and Moorhead are included. I don't think we need a 20-word name, you know, to make sure nobody's excluded. But we don't want to leave Fargo Moorhead out as a brand goes. The name Fargo has immense value in branding. People say the word Fargo, you don't even have to say what state you're talking about anymore after the movie Fargo. And we're partnered with Moorhead. So that's my advice, is to keep Fargo and Moorhead in there and call it the Fargo Moorhead diversion.
Okay, thank you, John. You see a logo over here. It says FM Area Diversion Project.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, John.
I think that would be Commissioner Strand's suggestion would be number 7 under project names. It's sometimes a project in the past has been referred to as the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion. And then there's also number 6, the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. Once again, it's really up to the board what you want to call the project itself.
Well, personally, I like area in there someplace to at least pull in and give some acknowledgement to the other protection that's going on out there. I'm not against Fargo-Moorhead at all, but Fargo-Moorhead area diversion project, if that's what we're going to call it, a diversion versus a flood. I know it gets pretty wordy, flood reduction project. Is there something better?
If I can share just a little feedback on what I've heard so far is the Fargo-Moorhead area diversion project would be too long for the branding. I understand the need for getting Fargo-Moorhead in the branding, but that's where we would have that in other areas. It's on the website. It would be very clear where the project is on other elements that are shared. So we have to be also really cognizant of how long this naming would be, because it really shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 at the most, because it would end up being too much to fit in one of those little logos. So I'll switch to the next screen just for a second, and you can see what has been created so far and how it gets even a little too wordy for the one on the left with the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. So just to give you a little bit of a view of what I'm dealing with from a communications perspective and why having it not only be consistent, but also compact as much as possible, because for this branding piece, it's very important that it doesn't get too long, where we can highlight the same information. So even if we called it Flood Diversion Project, we wouldn't be taking away anything from the Fargo-Moorhead name and giving, back that recognition to this area. It would clearly be identified in everything else that we're doing as well. It's just having that logo be as small as possible for consistency so it doesn't become so overwhelming. So just wanted to share that if that helps a little bit, and I'll switch back to the screen with the names so you can see the different options as well.
Okay, Jennifer, we've got some names up here. Let's go to Kevin first.
Yeah, just based on what was just said about just the diversion project, if that were to be Googled, what are you going to get? You going to get something anywhere in the country, or that's just a question I have.
Yeah, that's very possible. Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, so I was looking at this, and I don't disagree that you don't want too many words on here. For that branding, why not just a Fargo-Moorhead area diversion? Just take off project. It's what it is. We don't need project in there, but that's just my thought.
Thanks, Rick. And we have John Strand.
I'm sorry, I had not taken my hand down, but as long as you called me, I think Rick's thinking is pretty concise there.
And Rick, again, you were Fargo-Moorhead area diversion.
Yes, just Fargo-Moorhead area diversion. And that could be the branding piece.
Okay, I have one more hand up here. Kevin again.
I agree. I like it.
Okay, any other comments? Mayor Shelley.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that Katie had put in a comment about what is the intended use of the project name. And I'm assuming the intended use of the project name versus the authority name. You know, are we looking for a formal name to be used when talking about the project, or just hoping to have a catchier name that works with the average citizen? And I guess I do think that that is a good point. You know, we have our legal authority name, which I'm a little more inclined to go with the name that was developed as part of the joint powers agreement. But if it's something that we would be using in conversations with legislators, like Mayor Mahoney was talking, you know, is that what we're trying to do, is be able to find something that helps to designate that it is the Fargo-Moorhead, you know, and taking it away from the legal authority. I mean, I don't know if that is a question John Shockley could answer, or Jennifer, if you could answer that.
Madam Chair, I can just, I think there's two distinct questions here. That the first, I would suggest, you know, the legal name is the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. That name is used throughout all kinds of documents. Changing the legal name at this point would be very difficult, time consuming. We don't often use the official name with the project. And so in my view, I think this is more a question about what do you refer to the project that's being built by the Metro Flood Diversion Authority as it, and it goes to a branding question. And so when you go to the legislature, often you say we're building the, you know, it could be the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. It could be Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Area Flood Risk Management Project. To me, it's a branding question. I just think that it would be good, whatever name is decided, that it would be consistent, and that we would use that name going forward for branding. Because it's been, many different names have been used in the past for the project.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley, for that clarification. With that clarification, I guess then my view is, you know, a little bit more in line with Mayor Mahoney's than to put the Fargo-Moorhead Area Diversion. And I guess I'm ambivalent if it should be diversion project or just diversion. I do agree with that the area should be in there, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's just not our two cities. There are a lot of cities that are going to be affected by this: West Fargo, Horace, Harwood, Dilworth. I think people, you know, need to make sure that it's just not our two cities, but it is the whole entire area.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We have a couple hands up here. Jim Capitan.
Yes, I'm all for the KISS method, but I agree. I think the authority name should be left as it is, Metro Flood Diversion Authority, and I prefer the FM area diversion on the project name, because the area, I think, has to be in there. Like the mayor had mentioned, it's not only Fargo-Moorhead, it's West Fargo and the rest of the small cities, but also Cass and Clay County. So I think area has to be in there, but the word project is not.
Okay, and then you look to abbreviate Fargo-Moorhead by FM.
Yeah, FM area diversion.
Okay. Then we have Mayor Mahoney.
Yeah, just when you were referencing the joint powers agreement, when we signed that, I think in 15, John, I don't recall, but Cass, Clay County, Fargo, and Moorhead created the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. And at that time, the JPA referred to the project as Fargo Moorhead Diversion Project. I think for Jennifer, it's a good way to twist and turn, because if you take project off there, we're actually into the build of the diversion. So I do like that suggestion of Fargo Moorhead area diversion, because you're building it now and you're going forward on it now. And I think that if you wanted to launch a new brand, that why did you drop project off? Well, we're actually building it now. I really like that. And Mayor Carlson, I appreciate your comments too. It is an area, all these people are involved.
So Mayor, FM, all right with you, like the logo shows there, FM, area diversion, and drop the project?
I just think the hard thing is when we just talked about what are you going to Google. So FM may not come up on a Google, but Fargo Moorhead would. And I do like having the names of our two cities in there. I see her little logo at the bottom isn't bad as well. I mean, you could use that as a logo, but when we're talking about it, you might perhaps say Fargo Moorhead area diversion, because that logo she has on there almost does it. She could use that in cards and such. You could have the other heading on different elements. Jennifer, could you do that differentiation? Your business card might be smaller, but when you're talking about otherwise, it'd be Fargo Moorhead.
So I would just say that having Fargo Moorhead area diversion would be a very long name to have for a logo. Also, just to share back, part of why this flood diversion project and Metro Flood Diversion Authority was used, not only because it was the legal name that was used, but also because it interchanges so easily where you understand that it's the same project. So you have Metro Flood Diversion Authority. You could have Metro Flood Diversion Project, but when it's Flood Diversion Project and Flood Diversion Authority, there's a consistency in those names. If you have Metro Flood Diversion Authority and then Fargo Moorhead Area Project, you really don't realize that it's as consistent as the other name. So this is part of why you all brought me in to be able to make these suggestions from a communications perspective, and part of why these namings would be so important to have it more consistent in that way. I understand the need for the Fargo Moorhead area to be identified, but certainly it's not as crucial in the logo as it is just across the project as a whole, where you would see it in everything that we're identifying from the videos and the website and our social media channels. You'll see that location and that name in there. But for this logo, it needs to be as small as possible, which is exactly why we went with these legal names, because it represents that ability to do that extremely well and still have that consistency across the name of both the project and the authority. So I hope that gives a little bit of insight, but it would be very difficult to have the names for everything in the logo, because it would get a little bit too long. I'll switch back to the screen here again so you can see just how long it looks already for Metro Flood Diversion Authority. But again, that's the legal name, so that's why we have to put that for that logo. It is much better for us to do just 3 names at the most. And why we went with Flood Diversion Project, there's that consistency in it being flood diversion across both of the logos. And you can see that one is the project and one is the authority. So I'll continue to listen to whatever your suggestions are for the name, but from a professional communications standpoint, this is the reason why these names were chosen for these logos, and it's my best suggestion going forward for having that consistency across both and being able to brand the Fargo Moorhead area in the work that we're doing everywhere else. It's identified in press releases that this is a Fargo Moorhead area project. It's identified on the website and videos and everything else that we're doing. We're talking about a logo where it needs to be as small and consistent as possible.
Thank you, Jennifer. Rick?
Thank you. So, yeah, it's my small and consistent. I understand that piece, but descriptive is also, I think, important. And if everybody knows what we're talking about, then we're probably spending way too much time on a logo to begin with. But if we need to make that name shorter, then I take off project. I agree with Mayor Mahoney. It's a diversion. You know, it's the FM diversion, it's the flood diversion, it's the Fargo Moorhead diversion, and the project just really has nothing that I see of value to it. But that's, again, I'm not a media person. I'm just a Joe Public who looks at it and says, the Fargo-Moorhead diversion makes sense. The FM diversion makes sense. You don't need the project, but I do think you need to have the identification that some have said here about the Fargo-Moorhead area would be really great. I like the FM. If we have to shorten it to FM area diversion, I'm better off with that than the project. But again, I don't disagree on keeping it short. Get rid of the word project, and we'll figure something out.
Okay, any other, okay, who else we got?
I would
Anyone?
say that if we did FM area diversion, the only thing is people in this region knows what the FM means, but not outside of this region. So when I was looking in this role, I thought FM had something to do with the radio station. Unless
Right.
you're
So I agree. We should have Fargo-Moorhead in there then, just like we've been talking about. I agree with that.
Yep. Okay.
John Strand.
Thank you. And again, we're complicating this, but it'd be like if I had a city commission business card that said JS Fargo City Commissioner. It doesn't work for me as far as trying to tell people my name is John Strand. It's not JS. I think this is a Fargo-Moorhead area project. I really strongly think we should just keep those names in there. Maybe the logo visually is to maybe something to look at size-wise, but again, my advice is to keep Fargo-Moorhead, and I could live very fine with Fargo-Moorhead area diversion.
Okay, Dave Ebinger.
Yeah, I'm going to wade in on this. I think it's essential to have Fargo-Moorhead area in there. These are the entities that make it work. It's where the project is needed. I just think that's an awful lot of assumption for brevity that we're describing what this is. So it may take a little extra space, may have to redesign the logo, but Fargo-Moorhead area diversion seems like the best answer to me.
Okay, thank you, Dave. How about West Fargo? Bernie, do you have any thoughts?
Well, as a non-entity, I wanted to be as respectful as possible to all of you and your opinions. Having designed thousands of logos myself in my career, Jennifer's absolutely right in the sense of about 3 words is the most. My thought, Mr. Chairman, is FM area diversion. But again, as a non-entity member, I wanted to be respectful for all of the other people. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Dardis. Anyone else?
Roger, I believe Mark from HBA had his hand up.
Okay, I don't see that, but go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Mark Puppy with the Home Builders Association of Fargo-Moorhead. But one word I've heard a lot is branding. So it's what's the point of a brand? It'd be to stick something with your audience, right? So who's the audience, for one, would need to be considered, and acronyms are all over the place all the time.
Mark, were you done, Mark?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. One word I've heard a lot so far in the conversation here is brand. And when we think of brand, that isn't the legal description. I think any legal name can be set aside in this context. Brand, the audience would be the public, okay? So the public, by using Fargo-Moorhead, that makes Fargo-Moorhead exclusive. What about Horace, Oxbow, some of these other West Fargo, some of these other communities that will be impacted directly monetarily, geographically, how in whatever context, including the names, the words Fargo-Moorhead makes it exclusive to those communities. Now, if you're testifying in front of Congress, meeting with the congressional delegation, then that's when you'd be something a little more formal. But if we're talking in the context of a brand and trying to build an understanding among the audience, who in the context of a brand is the public, we'd want something quick, understandable, and something easily to which something can be easily referred and understood. Referred to and understood by including words like project. Okay, that's fixed and finite relative to time. A project is at some point done, but does the authority or the operations go away? No. It's sustained as the FM area operative term there, FM area diversion. And that encompasses everyone. And it's FM radio. Well, yeah, that's fine, but if you can pick your acronym. But Fargo FM area of diversion wraps it up, I think, in relative to pick the logo. I would hope that an organization or project doesn't define itself or its name according to a logo, but yet FM area diversion is all encompassing, and it relates to so far what every person has said so far. I'll turn mute on now.
All right, thank you. Jake, Gust?
Yeah, I've been listening to this for quite a while. I really think we should pick Fargo-Moorhead area diversion. It brings in what everybody wants, and I know it's maybe a little bit cumbersome, but I think we can make it work.
Okay, Jake, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in? Katie?
Hi, yes, sorry. I thought I'd better unmute and clarify. Yeah, Mayor Carlson, thanks for pointing out my message. What I was just trying to get at is kind of what Mark was just asking too, is I guess, what is our intended use of this? So if we're talking about, well, just talking to people in an email or in a meeting of the project, I mean, how are we going to refer to it? Probably going to end up being shortened, even if we say it's going to be Fargo-Moorhead area diversion. People are still going to probably likely call it FM area diversion. So I guess kind of going back to what is the point of it? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And I would think either of those would be okay, depending on what our intended outcome is with this name. Either laying it out Fargo-Moorhead or just FM, depending on what our intent is.
Katie, I'll share back that, so just in talking with people here in the community since the time that I've been here about this project and telling them what project I'm working on, if I say to them I'm working on the Fargo-Moorhead area project or the Fargo-Moorhead area diversion, a lot of people wouldn't know what that means. When I say the flood diversion project, they know that what that means because they know that there is a flood diversion project being built. So I understand that there's a need for sharing that this location is the Fargo-Moorhead area, and that is done in all of the other areas that we're sharing on the about the project. But when we talk to people about this project in the area, when you say it's a flood diversion project, that's when you have their attention because they know that that's what's being built to protect the community, which is more important than identifying the Fargo-Moorhead area. It's more important to identify that this is a flood diversion project that is protecting the community. I get all of the different names that we've talked about and why it's important to pinpoint this particular area for the flood diversion project. But just keep in mind that ultimately we are building a flood diversion project, and that is our brand.
Thanks, Jennifer. That's helpful. So am I hearing then this is kind of for people that maybe aren't familiar with the project at all? Like not the individuals on this call who know about the project and know what it's about, not, our business task force that knows what it's about, not that kind of audience, more the audience that are very unfamiliar of what this is. Is that what we're going for?
I mean, when we're about to open up these bids in just a few weeks and have a more national or even global audience looking at us, understanding that it's a flood diversion project is definitely bigger for our brand than saying it's Fargo Moorhead area diversion. That doesn't say as much to that national or global audience to bring them in. Yes, it gives us recognition for the Fargo Moorhead area, but still it doesn't tell them that this is a flood diversion project. And that's the most important thing for anyone, whether it's that local or national or even international audience. Does that answer your question, Katie?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I would say then, yeah, like FM area flood diversion could be the more formal one, Jennifer, of when you're presenting it on the global scale. But again, you know, in emails to my committee, it might be the FM diversion folks are going to come talk to us or whatnot. It might change a little bit like that of people shortening it up in a conversation locally. But if that's what we're looking for as a name that can be used on the global scale to identify what it is, then I think it is important to have the FM area piece of it. But yeah, maybe also the flood diversion. That's why I was just going back to my comment from the beginning is what's the intent? So that was helpful to hear the intent.
Although on that global scale, people are not going to understand what FM area is if we have FM area. It only makes sense for people who are familiar with this region. There are a lot of people in that global or national audience who won't understand what FM area means. So.
But Jennifer, unless we pick Fargo Moorhead, there's nothing else here that identifies where this project is. And I think that seems to be fairly important for a majority of the people here, our committee members. And hey, it looks neat. Flood Diversion Authority makes a neat logo, but if nobody knows where that is, or FM area diversion, you know, that probably would come up if you Googled it. Fargo Moorhead would probably come up, but it seems to be Fargo Moorhead area diversion seems to be what I'm hearing as something that would work. Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we're already known globally, theoretically, in the United States because of Hoven's work in the Senate and OMB and everything else. They always know it as the Fargo project. So people are well aware of this project. And Fargo Moorhead, Minnesota is always included because they love the fact that it's a bi-state project. And when we're out in Washington, California knows about this project. Different big programs that are doing know about this project, and they know it because of the location. So I just want to echo what Roger says, is that they know this project. I don't really care if globally if people know about the project, but I do care if the senators and representatives that have to vote us money know about it, and they have to have a location, because otherwise there's a California project, there's a Miami dredging project. I could almost list 5 other projects, but they're all by geographic location. And when Matt's trying to get money out in Washington, it always comes out, which project are you talking about? This has been around 10 years. They know which project.
All right. Any other comments? I don't know where we go from here.
Roger,
this is Joel Paulson.
Go ahead, Joel.
I just got to add a little bit of humor in because we've been talking about this for a while, and I think it's been a great discussion. But Roger, what about the Moorhead Fargo area diversion project? I'm interested to hear what Mayor Mahoney or Mayor Carlson might think of that.
This is Mayor Carlson. I would agree with that.
Hey, if we're going to get creative, Dardis wants to get involved too.
So sorry, Chairman Olson. I just had to lighten the mood a little bit.
Roger, this is Rick.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Well, since we're past our time here, just a thought. Jennifer's gotten her feedback. Let's see what she comes back with, what she can make it look like, and bring it back to, the public outreach committee and see what we think. We've given her enough feedback.
Rick, I was thinking the same thing. Let's do that. And you've heard.
The only feedback I might have about that, though, is that delays us another month, and we have to keep moving on the project and get all the templates updated and the website built and things.
We could certainly have an impromptu on to take care of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that. You bet. All right. Well, Jennifer, I think you have direction, and I think we're over our time, pushing into the land committee. Next meeting is April 21st, unless we have a special on this logo. So we'll call for an adjournment.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay,
Second.
Second.
we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.